trying not to imagine what God may be like, or not to describe it. Hindus are like, no, let's make images and let's describe God. Let's totally involve our senses in it. So, complete opposite approach. One of the questions that was said to be answered by when we were discussing what we needed to discuss from religions is marital styles. In Hinduism, there are at least 12 different forms of marriage, and there are various ceremonies described in the sacred text for each of those. Each region of India has different forms, as well as different denominations have those different forms. So there's a lot of variation. The one that's probably most understood in the West, we talk about marrying people because we love them. In Hinduism, that's Gandharva marriage. So that is one of 12 forms of marriage. Hindus believe that meditation is important because it helps clear the mind. Prayer is also important because prayer allows the individual to communicate with the divine. While at the same time, prayers are chanted in Sanskrit because the cosmic vibrations allow the soul to ride those vibrations which emanate from God. So it's a way of connecting again with God. I was asked to discuss sexual beliefs amongst Hindus. That tends to vary, again, since Hinduism is not like, they don't have a pope, they don't have a head of the whole thing. So the sexual beliefs vary. Many denominations are more conservative, more traditional. For the most part, the simple rule, if you want to think of the Hindu rule, is that sex should never be something that is addictive, and it should never be done to harm others. Is there sexual equality? Yes. Women are equal to men in Hinduism, because God is both male and female. So, and in some denominations, they have specific roles for, they give women and roles. Community involvement. Community involvement is very important to Hindus. A Hindu is asked to practice seva, or selfless service to others. They're also asked to practice dana. Dana is charity. Environmental involvement. The earth itself is divine. And if the earth is divine, then it must be cared for just as you care for the divine. Same with the reason they practice seva and dana. If everything is a manifestation of God, then you have to treat it as divine. Sacred books. Sacred books, some of them are the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Brahmanyakas, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita, Tantras, Agamas, Samhitas, Puranas. Again, there's no closed canon, so they just keep writing. The denominations and sects, there's the Vaishnavas. Vaishnavas are anybody who worships a form of Vishnu. So Vishnu, Krishna, Rama, all of them. Sometimes Hanuman, although Hanuman is generally considered a form of Shiva. The Shaiva, they worship a form of Shiva in any of his many forms. Ganapatya, they worship a form of Ganesha. Sarya, they worship the sun or any form of the sun. The Shaktas, they worship the mother goddess, any form of the mother goddess. And then there's a whole bunch of other lesser known ones. The purpose of life, according to Hindus, is dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. Dharma is one's duty in life. And this can be divided up as doing one's duty to God by performing the rituals and going through certain ceremonies and stuff. Your duty to your parents and your teachers by sharing knowledge with others, having children, and so on. Your duty to your guests by honoring and welcoming them, just like you honor and welcome God into your home. Duty to your ancestors by remembering them and sharing their stories. Duty to all humanity by helping those in need and caring for other people. Duty to the earth, the universe, all the animals of the earth, by caring for it and taking care of those in need. It's Hindus, like Buddhists and Jains, if an animal is hurt, it is your duty to take care of that animal and heal it. So that is dharma. Artha means to prosper. It's okay in Hinduism if you want to be wealthy and to be rich and to be prosperous. But you have to do it dharmically. So if you're prospering but you're not following your dharma, if you're not doing your duty, if you're doing it by hurting other people or trashing the earth or something like that, then that's a no-no. Kama means you're supposed to enjoy life. You're supposed to enjoy the pleasures of life. Whether it's sex or smelling flowers or music or art. Kama, you're supposed to enjoy that. But again, it has to be done dharmically. So if you're hurting other people or hurting the earth or hurting the planet, then it's not okay. The ultimate goal again is moksha, liberation from samsara. The question that as we'll go through the dharmic religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and Sikhism, that we'll always come back to. The question is, why do we suffer? And you'll hear this even when we get into the Western religions, although they'll phrase it a little differently. Why do we suffer? Hindus say we suffer because we fail to realize reality. It's almost as if we sleepwalk through life. We project our own perspective of reality onto the world. And because of that, we often don't see what's really there. An example, you're walking down a path. Ahead of you, you see what looks like a snake. You're scared of snakes, so you freeze in that moment, shining your flashlight on the item that looks very much like a snake. And for that moment, you believe truly that the item in front of you is a snake. And in that moment, you are suffering. When your fear kind of starts to subside and you walk closer, you suddenly realize, oh, it wasn't a snake at all, it was just a piece of rope. But in the moment, you really believe that was a snake. And in that moment, that illusion of the snake was real. Even though the reality was it was just a piece of rope. Or, try another example. Same path, you see an item in front of you, and you think, well, that looks like a snake, but it's probably not a snake. It's probably just a piece of rope. So you keep on walking. Turns out it really is a snake, and it bites you. In that moment, you're suffering because in your mind, your perspective, you projected that the item in front of you was just really a rope. Now the snake has bitten you, and you're hurt. Adi Shankara is one of the Hindus that started teaching this. He used to say that the world that we experience is an illusion, that we often are stuck in this illusion. And sometimes people will say, well, Hindus don't believe the world's real, they believe it's all an illusion. That's not exactly true, and that's why I'm trying to explain that. And there's a story about Adi Shankara and one of his disciples. One of his disciples went into town one day and decided to cross the street, and here was an elephant charging down the road. And he says, well, my teacher tells me that it's all just an illusion anyway, so I'll go ahead and cross the street at my time. The man on the elephant is screaming, move out of the way, move out of the way, move out of the way. So the next day when he woke up in the hospital, there was Adi Shankara, and he says, you lied to me, you lied to me. He says, I did not lie to you. He says, well, then why did the elephant hit me if it was just an illusion? You didn't understand what I taught you at all. Fool, you haven't understand anything I told you. So I don't want you to walk out of here thinking, oh, the world is just an illusion. No, it's what we project. Paramahamsa Nityananda has a joke that he tells. There's a man who stayed out late one night, and he was really drunk. He had drank and drank and drank. And he came home really drunk, and he didn't want his wife to know that he'd been out late again and drinking and stuff. So he went into his house quietly, got ready, and then laid down, snuck into bed. Woke up the next morning certain that, there would be no proof. And he walked into the kitchen, and there she is. She's like, you went out late last night, and you came home drunk. I know you came home. No, I did not. Yes, you did. You came home, and you drank, and you slept. And I know you stayed out late. And he's like, oh, how did you know? I didn't even wake you. How did you know? And she says, because you put the bandages on the mirror instead of yourself. Enlightenment, according to Hinduism, means to awaken to that reality. Enlightenment is not moksha. It is the step towards moksha, towards liberation. Why was the universe created? According to Hindus, there are many reasons. One is that she got lonely, and so the universe is her leela, her play. We are here to enjoy life and experience pleasure and joy because she was lonely. Another is that it is just in God's nature. It just pours out the creation. The final thing I want to talk about with Hinduism is the caste system, because it's something that has become, at least in India, is not quite how it originally began. If you read some of the Hindu sacred scriptures about it, the caste system, the Brahmins, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishnavas, the Sudras. Brahmins, at least the way it's kind of understood and explained in some of the Hindu sacred texts, is those are the people who are motivated by knowledge. And so they should have jobs where they get to use knowledge. The Kshatriyas are people who are motivated by power, so they should be given jobs where they get to use power.
I'm an untouchable.
Vaishyas are those who are motivated by wealth. These are people who should have jobs where they are allowed to use that motivation. Then there are those who aren't motivated by any of those. And those are the Shudras. And then, of course, there are the untouchables, which are the people who were once a part of the system but have been kicked out of the system. And nowhere in Hindu sacred text does it talk about the untouchables. Mlekas are those who were never in the caste system to begin with. That's us. We were never in the caste system, so we can't do that. To show how complicated it became, nowhere in sacred text does it talk about anything but the varnas, the ones that I just described to you. Now there's what's known as jatis, which are a subcaste, which are based upon your occupation. Within the jatis, there are even more subdivisions within that, which are based off of very specific jobs, and it just continues to break down beyond that. Technically in India, the caste system is illegal, but amongst Hindus, it is practiced. When Hindus move west, for some reason, that breaks down. They don't keep the caste system, so it just seems to be a Hindu. So questions?